Here in the United States, we're used to buying our games in boxes from a store. For a lot of gamers, if a game wasn't sold in an actual physical store, then the game may as well not exist. However, this isn't the case for the game industry elsewhere in the world. For example, in South Korea, the primary method of video game distribution is by having games pre-installed on PCs in internet cafes. South Koreans call their internet cafes PC banes, and since the mid-90s they have been among the most popular hangout spots for teenagers. The PC bane industry is reminiscent of the North American golden age of arcades in the 1980s, but with internet access for greater emphasis on multiplayer games. You might be wondering why it matters how the South Korean game industry works, but the game I'm reviewing today is Ragnarok Online, a game that once dominated the South Korean game industry as one of the most subscribed online games. RO, as it is often abbreviated as, has a large number of quirks to it that are difficult to understand if you don't know how the game is played in its homeland, so I felt I needed to give some background information. Released in 2002 by the South Korean developer Gravity Incorporated, Ragnarok Online is based on a manhwa comic book by Lee Myung-jin called, unsurprisingly, Ragnarok. This made Ragnarok Online the third massively multiplayer online RPG to be based on a South Korean comic book, the first two being Beram and Lineage. However, other than the name, some of the locations, and that all the concept art is created by the artist of the comic, Ragnarok Online has very little to do with the comic book. Even the Japanese animation television show was based on the video game, and not the storyline of the comic. The game can best be described as a love song to old-school Japanese computer RPGs, like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. Even the game's mascot, Porrings, are a shout-out to the slime mascot of Dragon Quest, and the game also features chocobo-like bird mounts called Peko-Pekos. The graphical style of the game is very reminiscent of Xenogears, with the backgrounds built as 3D models but the character sprites as highly detailed 2D images. Character progression revolves around job advancement, which is basically a way to upgrade your character into a prestige class. For example, a swordsman can become a crusader, and then upon reaching level 99 can reset their character back to level 1. The character can then become a high swordsman who transforms into a paladin, and then at level 99 can become a royal guard. Class-wise, the game offers the usual fantasy class offerings of knights, thieves, hunters, priests, but it also offers a few unique ones, like merchants, blacksmiths, gunslingers, and taekwondo martial artists. There is even a way for a character to remain the starting class, novice, and then transform into what is called a super novice, a character class who has an assortment of skills borrowed from their classes. Being a nearly decade-old game, it should surprise no one that Ragnarok Online recently went through what Gravity called a renewal update. Basically, Gravity drastically overhauled the game's mechanics, which made much of my prior knowledge about the game so outdated that I had to make a new character to play Crusader to 99, and then rebirth the character and play until I was level 86 Paladin. The support website has a timeline that summarizes the changes to the game, but I've created a guide on my website that gives a better summary and provides links for more information. If you're interested in knowing more, you should definitely check out my guide, especially if you're interested in learning how to quickly level up in the game. However, even with all the improvements, the gameplay has just not aged very well. I'm disappointed Gravity hasn't integrated quests better into the game. Ragnarok Online still uses the very outdated Grindfest model and does not feature quest-centric design. What do I mean by this? Well, the first generation of massively multiplayer online RPGs, like Ultima Online, Beram, and Lineage, have their gameplay based almost entirely around characters roaming across the game world to find the best monster spawn points. By camping maps with enemies that give excellent experience, but are relatively easy to kill, characters can quickly level up. Players refer to these kind of games as grindfests, and that is definitely the kind of gameplay Ragnarok Online clings to, and explains why the game is so heavily botted. Spawn camping-centric design coupled with the insanely low drop rates of rare items encourages botting, because the game rewards repetitive and mindless killing. In comparison, a more modern massively multiplayer online RPG design is the quest-centric design. This is basically what World of Warcraft is. In a quest-centric design, the most efficient means of experience accumulation is not by killing and respawning enemies, but by completing quest chains that guide a player through a story. Ragnarok Online has always offered quests, but the majority of them do not give experience rewards upon completion. The Renewal update has added a number of quests called the Eden Group quests, that are designed to allow a character to quest themselves from level 1 to 85 in a few days, but the level cap for the game is 150. If you want to go from level 86 to 150, you're going to have to grind your heart out on monsters that constantly respawn. And this is where Ragnarok Online needs the most help in order to remain relevant in today's market. I don't know what the subscription numbers are in South Korea right now, but in Europe and North America they are steadily dropping. It is strange for me to see the game's official server population reduced to such low levels of a few thousand. This was once the most subscribed game in the world. Gamers today just expect quest-centric design, with some kind of story to entertain them, and they have very little patience for mindless mob farming. The other major problem is that the game doesn't really become fun until you reach the last few levels, and start engaging in boss hunting and the PvP events, especially the War of the Imperium, which is a guild free-for-all PvP event, where guilds attempt to capture and defend castles. The advantage of having a castle is that your guild members gain access to special dungeons with above average experience, and can hunt boss monsters with less competition from other players. Castles also spawn treasure chests that allow guild members to gain rare items. Guilds with castles can also quest for some of the strongest items in the game, referred to as god items. The War of the Imperium happens to be one of my favorite PvP events that I've found in online games. It really does give guilds a purpose to exist, whereas in many massively multiplayer online RPGs, I feel there isn't any useful activity for guilds to do together that cannot be accomplished by partying with non-guild members. I believe that the measure of a good massively multiplayer online RPG is how well it encourages communities to be formed, and RO definitely does that function well. Guilds who farm items together as a group can exploit the low drop rates and increase their chances of obtaining rare items. The tens of hours of grinding can be reduced by having higher level characters power level lower level characters, such as by having a high level priest follow a low level character around, healing and buffing them. These group activities form strong bonds of friendship, and the guild PvP events form fierce rivalries that can make every gameplay session interesting. This is what drives the community of Ragnarok Online: interaction. You'd be surprised how many games manage to design so that players are isolated from one another, making communities very difficult to form. However, this design is imperfect. It relies heavily on the PC Bane culture, which is alien to gamers elsewhere in the world. In South Korea, you would, ideally, form parties and get gameplay advice from the people who were seated around you in an internet cafe. In North America, players tend to be sitting at home by themselves, and need to interact outside the game via Ventrilo and internet forums. The long hours of grinding can also be offset by sharing a single character with other members of your guild who are with you at the PC Bang you play at. You can all just take turns playing a character. This practice, again, is much less common and often frowned upon in North American gamer culture. So while these aren't huge design flaws and the game is played by the culture the game was originally intended for, Ragnarok Online requiring so much tribal knowledge to play effectively makes it difficult for gamers elsewhere in the world to pick it up. There are just not enough in-game tips, forcing new players to pester random strangers with questions, or spend hours searching forums and fan sites, hoping for the desired information to be both up-to-date and available. There's also a couple other interesting quirks that just don't make any sense. A perfect example is that you cannot directly transfer Zenny between characters on your own account. If you try to mail Zenny to yourself, the game will say the character does not exist. This is problematic because in order to transcend your character, you must sacrifice over 1 million Zenny. Since the most effective way to make money is to have a merchant sell your items to NPCs for you, you have no secure way to transfer Zenny off your merchant character to give to your level 99 character who needs to transcend. You have to ask another player and hope they don't decide to keep your money, or make a second account and then mail it between these two different accounts, and having that second account solely just to mail Zenny back and forth. I understand what not allowing players to transfer Zenny between their own characters is supposed to achieve, but it seriously pisses me off, and makes me not want to play the game, as even without transcending you need to spend Zenny to teleport, access storage, and perform some of the quests in the game. Really, I should just be able to mail my own character some fucking money like I can do in every other massively multiplayer online RPG I have ever played. It should not be this complicated and time-consuming to do something so basic. Ragnarok Online is kind of like having an on-again, off-again girlfriend. You have a lot of fun with her, but there are reasons you keep breaking up. With the Renewal update, Ragnarok Online has made a lot of effort to improve itself to address the things about you that tick it off, but it still has so many blemishes that kill the experience for me. Seriously, why the hell can't I send Zenny to my own fucking characters? This game has almost been running for 10 years. The ability to transfer money between your characters via a bank should have been one of the first features implemented through the game. You already share a bank with all the characters in your account anyway. I don't see what the point is of not letting you transfer Zenny. It also seems absurd to me that the Eden group quests stop at level 85. You were able to solo your way from level 1 to 85, but now you can't after this point? At least with the English servers, there isn't enough of a community. Random partying is pretty much dead, so if you didn't join the game with friends or a part of a guild, you really can't proceed past this point. I've seen no more than 3 pickup group booking requests at a single time. Sure, the server is small right now, but this is still an official server. It's silly for the game to be this difficult to get into. Their monster drops also need some updating. The levels of monsters were moved around during the Renewal update, but the value of their drops did not change. I'll explain why this is so problematic. Take kobolds for example. Kobolds are among the better enemies to grind on between levels 86 and 99, but kobolds were originally a low-level monster fought by characters in their 30s and 40s. The amount of money that NPCs are willing to pay for kobold's most common drop, blue hair, reflects this earlier design. It's kind of pathetic. I had a great deal of difficulty paying for potions because I simply wasn't accumulating enough money from the drops to cover the expense of purchasing white potions, forcing my high-level character to occasionally sit and wait for his health to recover. This was incredibly boring because it could take upward of 5 minutes. I can say that Ragnarok Online has some of the best background music of any massively multiplayer online RPG I've ever played. Spanning multiple genres such as jazz, orchestral, techno, and trance, the sound design of the game adds so much to the experience. I really think that not enough online game developers pay enough attention to the creation of atmosphere with music, but Gravity has done an excellent job with the selections that Ragnarok Online offers, and making the music appropriate to the game environment. In closing, would I recommend Ragnarok Online to people who haven't previously played it? I would, but only if you intend to play the game with friends and intend to get involved in the PvP events, after investing a few months of time into building a powerful guild. Otherwise, Ragnarok Online will probably not keep your interest when compared to other massively multiplayer online RPGs currently on the market. And it pains me to say that because I have a lot of nostalgic memories of RO, back in the day when I was younger and more of a hardcore gamer.